is more so consistency, which brings us to number 5. 4, 4, 4. Welcome to Cents Sensibility, where we like to talk about money without the stress. My name is Chris, and I'm here with my good friend.
I'm Phil.
So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about budgets. Budgets don't necessarily have to be boring or restrictive. They're just a plan for your money. And when, done right, they can help you feel more in control, which at the end of the day, we all want to feel a little bit more in control. In today's episode, we're going to just share simple step-by-step ways to build a budget that works with your life, not against it. So first step is start with your income, right? So before you can plan where your money goes, you need to know how much money you're working with. So calculate your total income after taxes, aka your net, not your gross income, because that's a big confusion that a lot of people kind of don't take into account when planning a budget. So here an example would be like, hey, let's say you're a freelancer, you make an account for income, right? Or you account for like your income of $3,000, but obviously since you're a freelancer, there's fluctuations. So by using an average of, let's say, the last 3 months of income, you'll have a better understanding of how to calculate for that income. Right?
Yeah, that's right, Chris. But you want to keep it simple. You want to list all your income sources and then add them up. So no fancy tools are required, but it's a good way to see how much you're bringing in, and then you can allocate it accordingly. So that brings us to number 2, guys, which is identify your fixed and variable expenses. So your fixed expenses are the ones that stay the same each month, like rent or insurance. And your variable expenses would be things like groceries or entertainment, things that can change based on how much you buy or what you do that month. So for example, we had a viewer that realized they were spending about $600 a month on dining out without even noticing. And then once they tracked it, they set a goal and they cut that in half. So a good tip I like to give people is use a budgeting app like YNAB or a simple spreadsheet to categorize your expenses.
Yeah, no, I think fixed expenses and variable expenses are, very important to identify, because then you can figure out like your break even and other things to help you kind of just form your budget, right? But this goes into, I guess, a good way to go into number 3, which is using the 50-30-20 rule as a guide, right? So this rule generally recommends that you use 50% of your income to needs, right? Which are those, rent, groceries, car payments, things like that. 30% for your wants, right? So if you want to go out on the weekends with friends, or coffee during the month or whatever it may be, and 20% for your savings or debt repayment, right? So adjust it to fit your goals and what you're trying to achieve. And a good example of this is let's say your income is $3,000, right? If you break that down to $1,500 for needs, $900 for wants, and $600 for your savings or debt repayment, that'd be a good way to structure it. Or if you have more money or more income, structure it accordingly, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. If you're paying off debt, I'd consider flipping the percentages, more towards debt and less towards wants.
No, I think that's honestly a really good tip, is, allocating more funds definitely towards your debt, because I don't think anybody likes to be in debt, let alone especially with high interest rates and things like that. But I think a big part of the 50-30-20 rule working is more so consistency, which brings us to number 5. 4, 4, 4. Automation, right? So just automate and track. So automation takes the guesswork out of budgeting. So if you set up automatic transfers for savings and debt repayments right after your payday, you will never have to worry or think about it, let alone worry about penalties as well, right? And a good example of this is that a friend of mine I know automated $200 a month into a vacation fund. I think by the end of the year, if not before the end of the year, right? They ended up racking up close to $2,800 in a year without even thinking about it. And he went out, or took his girlfriend, and they went on a good vacation, which I think is pretty well worth it, let alone it's just something you're not really thinking about that's working for you in the background. So a good tip would also just be using apps like Mint to track your spending, because it gives you alerts to make sure that hey, you're hitting your goals, and as well as nearing your budget limit, so you don't have to worry too much about overthinking or missing any kind of payments. So what's your biggest struggle with budgeting? Share in the comments, and I'll give you some tips in a future video. But remember, budgeting isn't about restriction, it's about clarity and control. So start with your income, track your expenses, use a framework like the 50-30-20 rule, and automate wherever you can. Stick with it, remain consistent, and you'll see results in no time. And as always, if you like this episode, hit the like and subscribe button, share it with someone who's ready to take control of their money, and don't miss out on our next video where we'll talk about the best tools and apps to make managing your finances easier than ever. But as always, keep your sense and sensibilities in check.